G'day guys, in this video we're going to show you step by step how to install a Haltech IC-7 into this LS1 VL Calais. So as you can see, it's got the original Calais dash, but it's had an autometer shift light and RPM gauge installed because the factory tacho doesn't work. And we've also got a aftermarket temperature gauge there as well. So that doesn't look the best. It's practical, but could be better. So what we're going to do is put an IC-7 in there, which will link up to the LS1 computer. So for this install we're going to be using the Haltech IC-7 and an integrated wiring harness from Dirty South Race Engineering. So this harness should make it easier for the IC-7 to talk to the engine computer. So I've also got this 3D printed instrument cluster, which is to replace the VL one. This is from Mako Motorsport and it's got a vinyl decal from SM Graphics as well, so it kind of looks like the factory VL Calais cluster. So I've seen a heap of these dashes on pretty tidy Commodores, but I've never seen the Haltech 7 itself be installed in any YouTube videos or anything like that. So I'm keen to give it a go. Hopefully we can help some people out who are looking to do this dash install themselves, but are a little bit scared about how tricky it might be. So before we start getting too excited and pulling this dash apart, we do have a few sensors to install. So I've opted for a fuel pressure sensor, so I've got to put that on the fuel rail first. We might also run these cables through the firewall into the engine bay because we have to connect to a new water temperature sender as well as the factory oil pressure sensor. The rest of the sensors will come from the computer itself and they'll all be displayed on the IC-7 once it's installed. So I've got a new coolant temp sensor. That should just go straight into there. And then we've got a fuel pressure sensor. And I was going to mount that. It's just a 1/8 NPT fitting, which we could put there where that pressure is, but it'll probably look a bit ugly, so I'm going to stick it in the back of the rail here, right there. So to do that, I've got a new Aeroflow fitting that'll take the 1/8 NPT in there and just sit in the end of the fuel rail. So according to the instructions, the best place to put that water temp sensor is on the driver's side head there. Make sure you've got your new temperature sensor ready to go, so when you do remove the old one, you minimise the loss of coolant. The next sensor is already installed, luckily. It's the oil pressure sensor, which is at the back of the engine. So you don't need to worry about that one. Now while I'm doing this job, I might try and relocate the LS1 computer. So it was sort of mounted against the trans tunnel there and it looks really ugly. I'm going to try and put it over here on the kick panel, so where the factory computer was. So I'll feed the wires for the IC-7 up through there, so we can stick it out through the hole in the firewall. When we're connecting the oil pressure, that's the purple seal, so the 3-pin purple seal, that one there, and the fuel pressure is the yellow, and then the 2-pin with the blue seal there is the water temp. So I've run the new cables through the firewall, into the engine bay and around to their corresponding sensors. Now we're just going to tidy up the harness, cable tie it so it doesn't get in the road. Right, and now we've run the cables through the firewall, we can start to pull the dash apart. Next we can pull the IC-7 harness plug up behind the dash and out where the instrument cluster was. The longer purple, brown and white cables are for the LS1 PCM, so they'll stay behind. So the next step is to find an ignition source and terminate the red cable. And also find an earth for the black. Here we're using a test light to see which wires coming into the instrument cluster were for the indicators. Next we're going to wire in the right hand indicator, which is the blue wire, fourth from the right. And this will be connected to the green wire from the IC-7 loom. Next with the left hand indicator, which is third from the left. It's like a light blue grey wire. It's connected to the yellow wire of the loom. Next wire is the high beam indication, and it is the orange wire on the loom and the green wire, which is fifth from the left. Next wire is the park lights, which is the blue wire on the IC-7 loom and the grey wire, which is the furthest to the right on the instrument cluster plug. Next we've got the wires for the fuel level. They're grey and black with a white stripe. So what I've done is soldered another wire onto the tan wire that goes into the instrument cluster. So tan is for the fuel gauge, and I'm going to run that wire down underneath the dash. That way I can put the dash together and I can play with these wires in the future without pulling the whole dash apart. Next you can just give the wiring a bit of a tidy up. Secure the Haltech IC-7 into the dash, 3 screws on the back. Insert the comms plug into the comms port and connect your extension cable, which will hopefully run down below the dash there somewhere for connecting a laptop. Lastly, connect the harness plug into the back of the IC-7 and lower your new dash into position. Well, I guess this is the moment of truth. No smoke coming out, so that's always a good thing. First we're intercepting the Tacho wire from the LS1 PCM. So it's the brown wire which is on pin 10, and it's connecting to the brown wire from the IC-7 loom. Secondly, we're connecting the Speedo, which is the purple and white wire from the factory PCM, which is pin 50. And we're connecting that to the purple wire from the IC-7 loom. Lastly, we're connecting the mill wire, which will activate any fault codes present in the PCM. Terminate the white mill cable with one of the supplied PCM pins. Insert this into the connector at pin 46 and tidy up the wiring and plug everything back in. Good. Got some sensors reading there. Haven't let any smoke out so far, so that's good. I guess we can start him up. As you can see, the alternator's not charging the battery, so I forgot to hook that wire up. Haltech do a really good video explaining this, so check out their YouTube channel for a much better explanation. Now, to get the alternator to charge, you need to use the brown wire, which is the first on the left. This brown wire will be different to previous ones you've tested, as there's no 12 volt feed from it. Here you'll need to introduce load from a light bulb, so it'll need a 12 volt feed from the ignition that you've hooked up to the IC-7, and then the negative from the lamp will go on the brown wire down to the alternator. See the voltage on the alternators come up now with the new lamp in. So as you can see, there's no oil pressure reading. I suspect that the sensor on the engine is actually faulty. It's the only one we didn't replace, of course. As you can see, there's a few customizable screens here I'm flicking through. These were pre-programmed before I got them by Dirty South Race Engineering, so a lot of this is already set up. You could set up one for drag racing or drift racing or whatever, and the other one could just be for street driving. To replace your oil pressure sensor, you'll need a 27mm deep socket. Try not to get an impact socket, because I think the walls will be too thick. If you can, get a 6-sided socket as opposed to a 12. With the right tools, the sensor's fairly easy to replace. So the instructions have a few options to get your speed working. Now, I don't have any tuning software, so I couldn't change the calculation for tyre size and whatnot, but I did find a setting in the speed channel. There's a pulse rate adjustment which you can do, so I just went for a drive with a GPS app running on my phone, and I found that 6,000 was the sweet spot for my car with my size rims and diff ratio. You can play with that yourself and find yours. Now, another reading that isn't working at the moment is the fuel level. So to get that working, you go into the channel settings, input calibration, change the sensor connected to a 240 by 33 ohms. The rest of that should be correct. So the brown wire from the dash plug connects to the grey wire from the IC-7 loom, and the black and white wire from the loom connects to earth. You can see here we've got working indicators and high beam indication as well. Also, if you turn the lights off, there's a darken dash mode. So there you go guys, hopefully that wasn't too difficult. I hope this video was helpful for some people who were sort of on the fence on whether they thought they could put this dash in themselves or not. It wasn't too hard, just knowing which wires are which sometimes is the hardest bit. So if you're looking at putting one of those dashes in an early Commodore like this dash, Haltech are releasing a new dash shortly, so I imagine that it's fairly similar, the process. Shout out to Dirty South Race Engineering for that engine harness, that made things a lot easier. Yeah, hope you enjoyed it. See you in the next one.